Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name's Liban. I'll be your host for this morning's webinar with Paul Turner, who will be delivering a Leadership in Financial Services webinar today. Whilst we wait for everyone to join, please pop in the chat where you are currently joining from and which sector you're currently in. It's always great to see where everyone's from and which sector everyone's in. So if you can pop in the chats where you're all from and which sector you're coming from, that would be fantastic. We'll just give it a few minutes to let everyone join, and we'll start from there. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone joining the webinar. As I said, for those who are joining just now, if you pop in where you are joining from in the world and also which sector you're in, and we'll start in a few minutes. My name is Liban. I'll be your host for today's webinar. I'm joined by Dr. Paul Turner, who will be delivering the Leadership in Financial Services webinar today. Before we get started, I'd just like to introduce you to IFF Training. So IFF Training is a training organization, part of the Informa Group, that has been delivering world-class financial training for over 25 years. And we've been partnering with global financial institutions to support them with their technical expertise and leadership capability. Which is why we are hosting today's webinar with Dr. Paul Turner, who I'm really excited to introduce you all to today. Dr. Paul Turner will be delivering the short webinar, and what I will do now is hand it over to Paul, who will start the webinar. So thank you all for everyone who's joining, and Paul, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Liban. There's a slide there that provides a little bit of my background. It's great to welcome old friends. I can see from the chat box that there are a number of you there that we've worked together in the past. So too many really to mention, but hi, good to be with you again, and also to new people that are coming in. You can see from my background that I've had many years in financial services, then moved into consultancy. But in financial services, worked on a range of areas, a range of functional areas. And over the last, 20 years now, been in consultancy, working with many managers across nearly every sector. My PhD is in particular in strategic leadership. And my specialism really, I guess, is around that assessment, development and coaching piece. I'd like to call myself a practicing practitioner academic rather than an academic practitioner, because I think my USP is really around focusing on evidence-based science, but making it practical and pragmatic for managers to use on the ground through various models. So let's have a look really firstly at the financial services sector. And many will say that there is a perfect storm in the making at the moment. And there are a number of key strategic challenges that potentially await us, or indeed are already there. So I'd like you to think about what challenges that you are having to deal with at the moment. What strategic challenges do you think are not too far down the road? And if you could put them in the chat box, that will give us an ability then to be able to relate this to your particular environment, wherever you are in the world. We have a global audience today, so that will be really good. So I'm going to go through some research whilst you're having to think about this and putting it into the chat box, and you have a think about that, and then we'll check in at the end. But research from Lell and Kundu indicate that there are many different areas of challenge for those of us in the financial services sector. Emerging tech is an obvious one, whether it's automation, quantum computing, digitalization, artificial intelligence, and all sorts of digital currencies that are coming through. This is potentially an external challenge, but of course it has internal implications. Then we've got emerging competitors, not just the big beasts of Amazon and Google, but other players such as BitGet, for example, that are coming into the market, coming into the fintech market. Public perception in terms of brand and PR. There is, whichever sector you're in, but in financial services particularly, a danger of low trust and loyalty and a great degree of fragmentation. And then, of course, financial services is one of the, if not the most regulated industry out there. And regulatory impact now has to be global. And this is creating pan-national complexity and accountability. Of course, then you've got shareholders to consider and the balance between lower margins, holding on to market share, and how all this plays out against the industry value proposition. And of course, you've got the people in your sector, the talent. And in the past, financial services, banking, insurance, etc., hasn't been seen as the most altruistic career for those in it. But today, and the new generation that's coming into the sector, there is a greater emphasis on meaning, on purpose, on fulfillment, on engagement. So again, this is a challenge for leaders, for managers, for HR professionals. And of course, then you've got the macroeconomic, climate, sustainability, wars, politics, global volatility, risk across many sectors. Customer expectations continue to increase, very much as well, caring about ESG, about transparency. Speed is important. So all of this is playing out. And as mentioned, it's creating a storm, really, of challenge and risk. So if you've got any particular challenges, as I've said, put them into that chat box, and we can actually pick up those comments.
We've got a few here, Paul.
Yeah.
So we've got some responses here. So a couple of people have put in their key strategic challenges as AI integration in finance and ESG is a very common one. Also a compulsive need to adopt modern technology like AI. So digital transformation pieces is a key strategic challenge for a lot of people. A few other things such as AI, blockchain, central banks, digital currencies, crypto compliance, as well as financial crime compliance is also a key strategic challenge for a number of people joining today's webinar. And as well as the foreign currency shortage and skills development and training is something that was mentioned. So all of these key strategic challenges are what people are facing in the financial services industry at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that very much centers around this research, really, about those areas that have been mentioned. And the one particular area that I'm doing a lot of work on at the moment is this risk area, because risk now is much more it's much more global now, and where we used to view risk, well, whatever that risk is, whether it be technology through artificial intelligence, or whether it be derivatives and digital currencies, there is now a chain of risk, and the old ways of looking at risk through silos really is going. Gone are the days when everybody had a particular job in a risk committee to focus on the silo risks. So risks now are not just across the globe, they're also across a company and have an impact. So yes, some really interesting things. And within the 5-day program that I run on leadership in financial services, one of the areas that we look at, of course, is people, because whatever the risk, people are actually going to be critical to managing that risk, whether it's in terms of knowledge or engagement, etc. Some very good points there, Liban. Thank you.
Just another one, Paul, just before we move on. There was a challenge that Alan mentioned. It was maintaining quality services while being pressured on costs. Can you touch on how you can maintain a quality service whilst being pressured on costs and budgetary restraints and things like this?
Well, you've got the transactional piece around that, and quality service today does tend to focus an awful lot on technology, systems, processes. So that's the transactional piece, and a lot of costs can be driven out of the system through the application of good technology. So that's one aspect. The other piece, though, is transformational, and transformational requires very often human element. And what the danger with all of this systemic process is, we forget that many people still want that human touch. And that's where the transformational piece around discretionary effort, leaders getting more out of people, people willingly giving to the company more than they need to. So it's that combination, I guess, really of looking at really good systems, processes, applications, but on the other hand, making sure that you're not ignoring the people element, because I'm sure we've all been in the situation where we've gone up a cul-de-sac in terms of a complaint, where there needs to be a human interaction in that process to stop that problem becoming worse than really it is.
Fantastic. Thanks for answering that, Paul. I hope that answers your question, Alan, as well.
So thanks, Alan, for that. So let's have a think about then. We've got these challenges, and we'll be talking about lots of these in the program, but we've got these challenges. And the question then, I guess, for us as leaders is to think about what skills do we need to actually countermand these challenges, to actually balance this up. And those skills, and I'd be interested in hearing from you really about what kind of development you're looking at the moment, whether in terms of yourself or your teams or generally across your organization. What are the key skills that are really up there for you in priority terms to develop going forward for yourself or for your workforce? Anything you can put in chat on that, be very interesting to share with our audience as well, particularly across the many countries that we have in the room. Whilst you're doing that, just to pick out some combined research here from a number of organizations, and the emphasis from this research has been around strategic thinking, which you would expect to see in on that list, I guess. Critical thinking, That's an interesting one because I do a lot of work with leaders, and critical thinking is one area that is very much high on the development scale for organizations. The ability to look at the context of a situation and also to actually analyze. And in the financial services, very often the key aspect here is to analyze, because we have the skills to analyze. And the trouble with just analyzing without enough context is we don't get the whole picture. And therefore, critical thinking is something that seems to be increasing on the priority scale. Of course, influencing and communicating. We talked about that transformational piece about leading and managing people and increasing engagement and motivation. This is around a lot around emotional intelligence, rapport, empathy. And the change management is still there. It was there 20 years ago when I was working in financial services and then in consultancy. Change is ever increasing, and change management is always there really as a development need. Talent developer, coach, mentor, bringing talent on, releasing potential. And one big hot topic across every organization I'm working with at the moment is collaboration. How can we be more cross-silo? How can we create a more collective leadership style with participative management? And of course, driven by those challenges we've just talked about, data and technology. Many of us won't need to be data or technology experts. That's not our job. However, we do need to understand the impact data and technology has on our business, has on our function. And so there is a need and demand for that. And of course, diversity, equality and inclusion, the key pillars of driving motivation, driving engagement, maximizing your talent. And then as in the modern world, as we go forward, the environmental, social and governance, the ESG perspectives come through. And of course, on the ground, team leadership and management. I just wonder, Liban, are there
Mhm.
any comments there?
Yes, there's quite a few comments, and they echo exactly what you were saying, Paul. A lot of the people that are joining today have said that the key skills that they think financial services need in the future are things like empathy, understanding of ESG, change, how change management can be applied to their roles, drive, adaptability is also a key one that's come up from a lot of the delegates that have joined today. And also planning and long-term visioning, understanding of macroeconomics, I think is definitely a key skill financial services leaders need in the future to maneuver some of the risks that are posed in these services. So
Yes, thank you. Some
echo
wise
exactly what you're saying.
insights. Yeah, some wise insights there. The adaptability piece is crucial, and we all adapt. We've all had to adapt throughout our careers, and it is there. The planning and visionary comes into that strategic piece. So, yes, all of these areas are areas that we need to consider and we need to adapt to. We need to align our leadership, our management style to these. So we have the strategic challenges, and we recognize that we, our teams, our organizations will need to adapt to those. That last point, which is around team leadership and management, when we talk about leadership and management, this is really what it is all about. And just for a moment, think about your organization. How many teams are currently existing and operating within your organization? I'd like you to consider the hierarchical teams, the functional teams, the sub-functional, multi-level teams, the cross-silo collaborative teams, the specialist groups, the advisory groups, the project teams, the informal teams. Just try and come up with a number. If you can do that, just put it into chat, just to see what kind of numbers we're coming up with. There are so many teams in organizations, aren't there? We seem to look at an organizational chart and we think, yeah, these are the number of teams we have. What really underpinning that, there are so many more teams within an organization. Liban, do we have any numbers coming through at the moment?
No numbers coming through.
It's a difficult question,
It's
to be
difficult.
fair, Liban, because when you start saying how many teams do you have, to start actually evaluating that number. But whatever that number is, I would suggest that it will be underestimated. There are many more teams than most leaders and managers think there are. And the question then, of course, on these numbers of teams is, how do you consistently evaluate the efficiency and effectiveness of these teams? How many of your team leaders can articulate where their team is in relation to high performance, whether that be efficiency or effectiveness? And what about the potential areas for improvement? Imagine in your organization if every team improved their performance by 10%, 20%, or more. So most managers, in my experience, are not improving their team efficiency and effectiveness. And primarily, they're not doing that because they have no model or framework by which to do so. Anything, Liban, any numbers coming up yet?
No numbers coming in
I've
as yet.
set them a question. I've set them a question that we are financial services, so I'm sure there'll be a few computing that now. But one way that we can actually work on this, and this is something I cover in the 5-day program, is the evidence-based and science-driven rocket model. And I mentioned in the precursor to this webinar that we would take a little dive into a model. And so the dive we're going to do is into the rocket model there. And as you can see, what we have there are 8 elements which comprise the rocket model. This has been created by Curthy and Nilsson over 20 years ago, 25 years ago. It's researched. It's a global model that is active in many organizations throughout the world, I think around 3,000. So let's have a quick look at the context. But before we do so, we're going to give you a poll at the end of my explanation walkthrough. And Liban's going to arrange that. And what I'd like you to identify as I'm walking through the model is which element of the model is your strongest, the one that you would say, yes, we do that well in our teams. So think about your own team maybe, or a bigger team, but then identify the area you feel needs most development. So high, low, just 2 areas of the 8 that I'm going to go through. What's your most strongest? What's your weakest? So let's just start with context. Context means aligning everybody on that team to the context that surrounds them. And we can do that in a number of ways. We can use some classic models like SWOT or PESTLE to enable us all to have a conversation around what is the reality around this team at the moment. So many teams don't agree on their reality on their context. And then to the left, mission. The mission is, of course, the point where we get, let me just move this on to the next slide. It gives a little bit more of an explanation there. The mission is about clear team purpose and measurable goals. And if you think about the work of Simon Sinek here, the Simon Sinek talks about the importance of why. And it talks about really every company, every organization knows their what's, what we've got to do. Some know the hows, how we do it, the value-driven behaviors that we will use. But not many organizations understand the why. So getting your team to understand why they exist and why they need to do and achieve certain goals, aligning that to the organizational purpose, vision, and mission. And then over to the right of that rocket model, we have talent. And this is looking at the right size, the skills, the roles, the rewards, and the followership in the company. This is your people piece. And very often, this is a real big area of improvement for organizational development, in that many teams are not the right size. Before we even get onto the skills or the roles, they're not the right size because they're functional. And as an external situation changes, it takes the organization 2-3 months, sometimes 2-3 years, to actually align the size of a team to the new situation. A large part of that is the resistance of team leaders, because team leaders don't want to lose resources. But from an organizational piece, it's really important. We talked about adaptability, didn't we? To get that talent team groups at the right size, and the skills, of course, and the roles, etc., and rewards. Then up above that is buy-in. Buy-in is often talked about and often discussed, but very often agreement is seen as buy-in. So when you're in a team and you get agreement, it doesn't mean you've got buy-in. Yes, everybody is saying, oh, we agree, but do they commit? Do they buy in? Is there enough motivation there? And very often agreement is something that isn't accompanied by that commitment. And then to the left of that, norms. Norms really are the standards, the accountability of the team, effective rules for meetings, decision making, for actions, for communication. There's a great book, Legacy by James Kerr. I do a lot of work in sports, so I love this book. And it's about the All Blacks team, the greatest sports team of all time, some would say, and how they created a set of norms and standards to hold each other accountable to. And then above that is resources. Resources fits very much with that talent down on the bottom right, in the sense that, is the budget right? Do we have the equipment? A team might have an opportunity, needs budget, but it needs budget from another area. So how well an organization balances these two things will be how well they will be successful. And then over to the right, we have courage. And courage is about people trusting and having the self-belief and having the safety that they can challenge each other. And trust is something that it really needs to be nurtured. There's a lot of talk around trust, but you have to build trust through behavior. Talk is cheap. Behavior is necessary to build trust. And then all of that coming together really ends up, of course, with results and the importance of actually focusing. If you think about the Belbin model, And if you haven't got a completer finisher in the team, you don't actually complete the job. So many teams may do a lot of great stuff, but just haven't got enough focus on results at the end of it. So having walked through those 8 elements, it'd be really interesting to know what you think in terms of strongest and weakest.
I
Liban, do we
can
have
go through
anything there?
this. Yes, so we got a couple responses. So Artistis has said the strongest he believes is norms, with the norm/results for the strongest, and the weakest he believes is resources and talent. We've also got another one where the highest, the strongest piece that they felt was mission, and the lowest was talent. And another one as well, mission. Anna Maria believes is the strongest, and resources and talent could be extended in the weaker framework. Apollo said the strongest is courage and the weakest is resources. And Syed said buy-in as the strongest and resources as the weakest. A few others as well. Giuseppe said the weakest would be talent slash buy-in. So that is something that he feels is the weakest based off the rocket model. And in terms of the strongest, he believes it would be norms, so resources. Norm, sorry. And Dejan has said the strongest is norms and talents, with the weakest, from his perspective, results and mission.
Okay. So what we could see is that there's different places for different teams, and that's why the rocket model is so effective in that what companies can do, they can actually, the rocket model is accompanied by a psychometric assessment, which actually scientifically shows where your teams are. But you can also use this model in terms of using it as a strategic piece, as you've just done today. Of course, self-assessment without psychometric science is not as accurate. And we might think this is our strongest, we might think this is our weakest, but when you actually do the psychometric, there may be some difference between what our identity is, as in personal psychometrics, our identity being who we think we are, and our reputation is what other people think we are. So this 360 of team effectiveness and efficiency is really valuable there. Interestingly, on some of those, it's great to see mission being strong. It's great to see norms being strong. Norms are, whenever I go into a company and they say we have a problem with accountability, it always stems from a lack of norms and buy-in. And that's where we start to work. But also this talent and resources piece is a classic of the need for greater cross-silo, collaborative cooperation from the top team needs to drive that to get that flexible, adaptable organization. Thank you, Liban, for that. And so that's one of the things, one of the models that we look at and I work with, which is a very useful model for leaders and managers. So when we look at the 5-day program I mentioned, what it is about, just as an overview, is leading and managing self. So in this, we look at self-awareness, personal resilience, emotionality, emotional intelligence, and neuro leadership, included in coaching as well. Then leading and managing teams, that high performance team performance thing that we've talked about, the rocket model, cross silo collaboration, the key hot topics, diversity, generational teams, hybrid working, and leading and managing others are leadership and management styles, including transformational and transactional and the coaching models that go with that. and leading and managing the organization. That's a purpose-driven adaptive leadership. We talked about adaptability at the beginning, aligned to cultural change management. And then, of course, future planning and action. So the program, I will be delivering the transfer of knowledge in the program, and my colleague Alison Campbell will be linking that knowledge to helping you to link it to your workplace, to get that practical and pragmatic approach to make it real. And from that, everyone will leave with their own personalized action plan. And the key benefits from that program around, obviously, holistic leadership development, a great top up for experienced managers, maybe managers who are stepping up into new challenges, enhanced interpersonal and interpersonal skills, resilience and adaptability. Also, a real look at strategic risk management, getting on the business, not just in the business, giving you an opportunity to take a step back and to look down, to helicopter above. Team management, change and culture management, and the different ways in which people respond and react to different leadership styles. Diversity, equity, and inclusion to drive engagement and motivation, and as mentioned, future forward planning. So there is there, if you want to scan that, there, the scan, you will then get the outline details of the 5-day program if you wish to just do that and scan it from there. So I'll leave it to you, Liban, to wind up.
Thank you so much for that, Paul, and your insights and going over the leadership framework such as the rocket model. I'm sure that this was quite useful for everyone that joined today, and I'm sure can be applied to all financial services sectors. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to touch on what Paul was mentioning with this 5-day program. He will be co-delivering this with Alison Campbell on the 8th of December to the 12th of December. And now for everyone that is registered to this webinar, we're offering you a 20% discount off for that public program. So if this is something you or other team members would like to join, please do scan this QR code on screen, and that will take you to a section where it will apply the 20% discount for the Leadership Excellence course, where Paul will go into further detail off the back of this webinar. So we'll also email this out to you all, just so you have it in your emails. But we thought we'd put it up on the slide so you guys can have it. So that's that for the public program. It's taking place on the 8th of December. And finally, as well, if you move into the next slide, Paul.
Yep.
If you're also interested in working with ourselves and Paul on customized learning solutions, if you scan the QR code on screen, it will take you to our customized learning solution page, where you'll be able to work with our learning solutions team, myself and Paul, to support you and your team and your organization with a flexible and customized learning solution that's tailored to your needs. You can drop me an email, that's liban.dahi@informa.com, for more information on how we can support your team's learning, as well as using the really nice QR code that we have on screen. Like I said, IFF Training does deliver a lot of technical finance training programs, and we work with a lot of organizations to deliver bespoke training solutions. So if this is something that is of interest
Liban,
to
just
you,
ask if there are any. We've got a couple of minutes left, I think. So if there are any questions anybody wants to put, please feel free to pop them into chat whilst we've just got a couple of minutes left, I think. So,
of course, pop it in the chat, pop it in the Q&A section. Please do ask Paul any questions that you might have. We're more than happy to answer them for you. But yes, if this is something of interest to you, the customized learning solutions, please do drop me an email or scan this QR code. We're more than happy to support you with your training needs.
Yeah, we find that when leaders come into a room together, that we have the learning course in the content, but the magic is in the interaction with leaders from around the globe, really coming together and learning from each other. And I always say that whenever I do run these programs, I guess I learn more than most in the room. I've got so much to learn from the people that come into the room. So it's very much an interactive experience, as well as creating the knowledge and the research that's going on in the world and bringing it to the fore for you in the room.
People learn off others, Paul, and I myself have been in numerous training programs, and it's always the questions that people ask in the room and the interactions that I remember the most and apply into my day-to-day. So that kind of interactivity is definitely something that I myself value when joining a training program.
Well, it doesn't look as I'm going to get that difficult question, Liban, at the end. I
Yeah,
think I'm
no,
going to
there's
be
no questions.
spared that.
Yeah, there's no difficult questions at the moment, but if anyone does have any difficult questions, please do pop it in the chat. We do have a few more minutes. But yeah, if there isn't any other questions, appreciate everyone joining today's webinar. It's great to have you. We will be posting this webinar on our website so you can view it on demand. For everyone that is registered onto this course, you will receive a 20% discount to Paul's 5-day public course in leadership excellence in financial services, co-delivered with Alison Campbell. And if there are any other questions that you'd like to pose to myself, to IFF Training, or to Paul directly, please do drop me an email. My email is on screen at the moment. And thank you all for joining. It's been a great 43 minutes. So nice, lovely Tuesday. We've got 2 minutes left to spare. So if there's any other burning questions anyone might have, please do pop it in the chat. And thank you all for joining.
Thank you, Taya. Thank you, Delna. Yeah, we've talked about this. Yeah, the impact of AI on the industry. Yeah, I mean, it's how long is a piece of string? It's absolutely difficult to actually give a soundbite on AI in the industry, except to say it will have a massive people impact. And if you think it's just a technological impact, then you're going to be in trouble. So it is all about people, even though there will be a number of job redeployments, but it will require some big HR thinking and presence. Thank you, Minesh.
We have another question, Paul.
Yeah, the expectation, Nada, that I think the best thing is to look at the outline of the course that we gave the scans for. And on there, you'll see the objectives and the goals of the seminar. And if you tick the objectives, or even if you tick 3 or 4 of those 8 or whatever objectives, then I think your expectations will be achieved.
I've popped that in the chat for you.
Thank you. There it is. There it is, Nada.
Thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any other burning questions to ask Paul? In terms of your day-to-day with the current work that you're doing in financial services, is there any issues or any specific areas that you feel like Paul might be able to give you some pointers on or support you in anything you're doing currently? So I
Okay
guess
then, Liban, I
no
think we
problem.
can say a final goodbye.
Final goodbye. Thank you everyone all for joining. Really appreciate everyone turning out today. Like I said as well, I'm just going to pop my email in the chat. If there is any other questions that you'd like answered, or if you'd like to have a discussion on anything that was mentioned today, please do drop me an email. Thank you all for joining and have a great rest of your day. Thank you again, Paul, as well for delivering this fantastic webinar. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Minesh. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.